Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to talk about K-pop groups that have gone through sound changes in their careers. Sound changes can make appearances in so many different forms. Maybe a group will initially debut with a certain type of sound, but after a few comebacks, their company will realize that the sound that they first chose for their group isn't really working for them, so they'll try something new. Or maybe a group will switch up their sound each time they come back and won't really stick to a certain concept. And no matter what kind of sound change a group has, sometimes they're good and sometimes they just frankly aren't. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. In this video, I'll be pinpointing a bunch of different groups who I think have gone through sound changes, and talking about whether or not I think that the sound change was good or bad for the group as a whole. I'll be doing a brief explanation as to what kind of sound change I think each group in this video did, and be giving my own 2 cents as to why I think each sound change was either helpful or harmful. And I think that just about wraps up this video, so without further ado, let's talk about group number 1. So 17 initially debuted with a very bright and fresh concept that stood out in a good way compared to the more serious and intense boy groups that were popular at the time. However, recently, I feel as if their sound has ventured away from that and has instead become a lot more commercial and somewhat bland. I am going to give credit where credit is due, however, and I will say that every comeback their albums still do have a stellar B-side or two that keep my interest in the group as a whole. And I mean, I still do simp for S.Coups and Vernon at least once a day. However, their title tracks like Left and Right, Fear, and Rock With You lack a sense of originality and don't really hold the same essence as their earlier releases, in my opinion. Yes, it does kind of make sense that as they've gotten older as a group, they don't really do the brighter or cuter concepts anymore and kind of stick to a more mature sound, and I don't want the group to like LARP as schoolboys in every new music video. I just feel like there must have been a way for 17 to mature their sound as time has gone by, while still bearing a resemblance to their earlier releases that were a lot more refreshing. I feel like Astro, their latest 2 comebacks after Midnight and Candy Sugar Pop, have shown that you can still release title tracks 5, 6, or 7 years later that feel cohesive with what you did during your rookie years, and at the same time show a sense of maturity and refinement that reflects the growth that your group has gone through. And instead of doing that and staying true to the sound that made them trendsetters back in 2015 and 2016, I feel like nowadays I see 17 as a group that follows trends more than anything else. It feels like every new 17 title track takes the sound that was popular last year in the US and tries to emulate that in their own way, which results in a lot of music that I feel lacks a sense of inspiration that their earlier works had, which you can especially see with songs like Rock With You and Ready to Love, which almost feel like a sort of Justin Bieber song that you would hear in 2020. I'm not trying to deny the talents of Woozy or anyone else who produces 17's music, but I do feel like their producing and composing team has suffered from a little bit of creative burnout, which leaves me in a state where I wish that 17 would go back to releasing title tracks such as Oh My or Monse. Now, the last thing I want anyone to think about me after watching this video is that I was not a fan of Mamamoo's jazz era, because if that happens, I will be genuinely devastated. I really do love songs like Oh Yeah, Yes I Am, and Mr. Ambiguous, but I just love songs like Hip, Egoistic, Go Go Baby, and Dinga so much more. I think for their first few years of activity, the unconventional and lighthearted concepts that they did were great and had such an infectious energy to them, but the confidence and power that their more recent albums have had is exponentially more appealing to me. I think over time, for lack of a better way to explain it, Mamamoo evolved from a girl group to a woman group, if that makes sense. And I love the way that tracks like Hip demonstrate the strong identity that the members have and how they don't care if people don't like them because they know who they are. I think over time, Mamamoo's sound became a lot more soulful, almost as if they had gone through a lot more adversity as they had matured, and were able to put a lot more emotion into their vocals that weren't present during their debut. And as time went by, everything about Mamamoo became a lot more professional. They went from being the kind of awkward new kids on the block to being nothing short of living icons, and I think the kind of sound change that they went through turned them from good to great. What I'm going to be talking about in this section isn't really the same as any of the other ones in this video, but after the release of She's the Boss, I feel like I have enough to talk about, to the point where I wanted to include it. Now, I want to start this off with a question. Does anybody else feel like there's a stark difference between the quality of the boys' Korean comebacks compared to their Japanese ones? Because personally, I feel like every time the boys have a Korean comeback, it's so polished and clean, and has a set goal in mind of what it wants to be. But for every quote-unquote Japanese release that the boys have had, the songs just feel messy and aimless, and don't feel like the same The Boys that you hear for their Korean releases. Songs like Tattoo, Breaking Dawn, and Now She's the Boss suffer from really weird vocals, and they make a lot of interesting musical decisions that are exclusive only to their Japanese releases. Only in the Boyz Japanese release will the entire chorus feel like it's out of the group's vocal range. Only in the Boyz Japanese release will they be moaning into your ear for like half the song. And only in the Boyz Japanese release will they have these really absurd and jarring rap verses with this whiny tone that kind of hurts the ear. And I don't understand how their Korean comebacks can sound so good and their Japanese ones just sound no. You know, if you're gonna release music that's specifically targeted and dedicated towards members of your fandom in a specific part of the world, then the quality of that music should be at least consistent, if not better than what you usually put out. And it's not really a good look to have every single one of your Japanese releases sound sort of cheap in a way. And I guess I just don't understand why their company is so willing to release subpar music and doesn't even seem to want to do the bare minimum when it comes to their Japanese releases. One thing that I will say is that I feel like their Japanese comebacks have some of their best styling ever, but the Boyz are also just usually excellent when it comes to styling, and their good styling doesn't really make up for how I feel about the music. And overall, I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more effort when it comes to the Boyz and their Japanese title tracks at the very least.
Boom-ba-ya. Yeah, 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 boom-ba-ya. Looks so good, yeah, looks so sweet. Hey, baby, you deserve it.
There are a bunch of different groups out there whose main musical identity is that they have two different types of sounds. And one of my all-time favorites has gotta be Blackpink, who have both their black concepts and their pink concepts. I think it's super interesting how Blackpink are able to change up their sound almost every single time they release new music. And the way Blackpink is marketed makes it so it doesn't feel like a blindside when they release How You Like That right after Ice Cream. It's super daring to stick to two concepts that couldn't be more polar opposites of each other. And although they don't release too much music, it's super fun how 6 years later you still don't know what their next comeback's gonna sound like. And the fact that within their first 2 years of activity they released Boom Baya, Playing with Fire, and As If It's Your Last is a true testament to the diversity of Blackpink as a group. One of my favorite things about Blackpink's music is that it feels like it's so unique to them specifically, and if it wasn't these four girls whose voices you heard on the track, it really just wouldn't be the same. I think if I had to choose one side of their sound as my favorite, it would have to be the pink side, because unlike their black concepts, I love every single pink song that they've ever released, and yes, that does include Ice Cream. Now, all I need is for an official date for their comeback to actually be announced, because I have been very deprived of new Blackpink music for, 2 years now, and personally, I'm hoping that it's going to be something more on the pink side. And if not, let's just get another Pretty Savage, because, I mean, come on now. The sound change that I think might go down as the most unexplainable and unnecessary one in existence has to be Weekly's. After having both their debut and first comeback that weren't smash hits but still did moderately well, to the point where they even won Female Rookie of the Year at the 2020 Mamamoo Awards, and then after that they saw the viral success of After School, Weekly with their schoolgirl concept seemed like they had a really bright future ahead of them. And while I honestly was never really the biggest fan of their B-sides, I did love all 4 of their title tracks that had the schoolgirl concept. And I feel like when Weekly released Venpara, they kind of threw away all of the momentum that they had going for them. Yes, Holiday Party was a big step down in terms of success compared to After School, but so was Zigzag compared to their debut Tag Me. So Weekly's company already knew that you could bounce back from a loss of momentum even if you stick with the same concept. So I don't understand why they felt the need to change literally everything after one slight misstep. I feel like a lot of the people who casually followed Weekly in the past aren't gonna have much interest in them in the future after this concept change. And yes, their core fandom has grown over time, so their physical sales have gone up. It seems like they kind of threw away almost all of the general public support that they did have, both from international K-pop fans and the Korean public as well. Personally, I don't like Venpara at all, and even though I didn't like Weekly's B-sides in the past, I feel like they almost got worse with this newest album, so maybe I'm being a bit too harsh because I'm biased, but I view this concept change to be one of the biggest blunders in K-pop history, if I'm honest. And in my perfect world, IST Entertainment's gonna understand that they're not gonna get much success if they stick with this kind of girl crush sound, and will start releasing music like Tag Me and Zigzag again, because Venpara was just not needed at all. And that's actually going to conclude this video. I've written down a bunch of other groups that I think have done sound changes, but I'm gonna wait to see how well this video does, and if does well then I might make a part 2. But in the meantime, make sure to let me know in the comment section what your favorite and least favorite sound changes in K-pop have been. Before you click off, make sure to check the pinned comment down below and vote for MCND on Road to Max. There are only 3 days left, or 2 days left in the voting, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to see more from me, consider sharing or subscribing. Thank you all again for watching the video, and without further ado, I'll see you all next time. Peace out.